Hey, welcome, folks. So I'm glad you all can join us here today for our Masters of Science in Counseling webinar or virtual information session here on August 27th, 2025. So thanks everyone for taking some time out of your busy schedules in the evening to learn about our program. So just to start off here, I do want to make a few round of introductions of the folks who you will be seeing today, if I can get my PowerPoint to work. So first and foremost, my name is Eliel Acosta. Like I mentioned before, I'm an assistant director of admissions here at Johns Hopkins, the School of Education, and I will be the main point contact for you all as you go through the application, the admissions process here at the School of Education. And then with us today, we have Liz Woodward, who's the Director of Enrollment Management. And between the both of us, we carry a lot of experience when it comes to the counseling program, the graduate enrollment. So we're here to kind of provide some guidance as you take those initial steps in exploring the counseling program here at Hopkins. Um, just a quick kind of roadmap of what the day looks like or what the evening looks like. So there are kind of 6 key components that we want to talk about and share some information with you all here. So first and foremost, right, we'll give you kind of a big picture general overview of the School of Education here at Hopkins. Then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the MSN counseling program, the clinical experiences, both for school counseling and clinical counseling, outcomes and opportunities that you have here with the program, and then the admissions requirements and timeline, right? All that fun stuff as we approach here the fall semester. And then at the very end, we will also talk about how to fund your degree, tuition, financial aid, scholarships. We will have some time to take some questions and answers, or questions, I should say, at the very end. So as we kind of go through today's presentation, a lot of your questions that you submitted through the registration form are going to be answered. But if for whatever reason we don't hit on a specific question that you have, feel free to type it in the chat box as we kind of go through the presentation. Either myself or Liz we'll do our best to kind of answer those questions, so that way at the very end we have time to kind of take some live ones as well. Other than that, just kind of my last remark here before I turn it over to Liz is that this session is being recorded. So the plan is, to send this to everyone who registered for tonight's webinar, so you can have it as a reference as you explore the School of Education. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Liz here.
Thanks, Eliel. Welcome, everybody. Before we dive into our specific program, I wanted to give you some context about the institution you're considering joining. So Johns Hopkins is America's first research university and holds the distinction, being founded in 1876 and about to celebrate 150 years, with the revolutionary idea that the university should advance knowledge through research and teaching students. So this research legacy isn't just historical, it's very much alive today. For 36 consecutive years, Johns Hopkins has led all U.S. academic institutions in research expenditures. And this means that as a counseling student, you would be part of a community that values inquiry, discovery, and evidence-based practice principles that are fundamental to what we consider to be effective counselors, to be educational leaders, and all that we do. So our intellectual diversity is really reflected in our student body across the university of over 24,000 students across the 9 schools. And we feel this really creates a rich interdisciplinary environment where education, including our counseling students, often collaborate with peers from medicine, public health, international studies, and the cross-pollination of ideas enriches your learning experience, broadens your perspective on complex educational challenges. So our global reach extends to over 150 countries, which is particularly relevant for counseling as we see clinical mental health, in particular in school counseling, kind of becoming at the forefront internationally in terms of global and internationalization. But the work that we do in counseling and education has an international dimensions, and we serve diverse student populations with this global perspective. What we're seeing is an increasingly interconnected world. Move to the next slide, please. Okay, so in addition to being America's first, the strength of Johns Hopkins lies in our 9 distinct divisions. You can see here applied physics laboratory, public health. We have a business school, arts and sciences, our conservatory, which is called the Peabody Institute, and our advanced international studies, School of Medicine, School of Nursing, and Whiting Engineering. And these interconnected structure provides our students with unparalleled opportunities, quite frankly, for interdisciplinary learning and collaboration. Just some fast facts as we turn to the school. The School of Education is one of the newest of the 9 schools, really formally established in 2007. We have a total enrollment of about 1,164 students. We offer 10 master's degrees and 2 doctoral programs and a range of graduate certificates. Our faculty strength includes 109 full-time faculty members. We award about 500 degrees annually. And we have 25,000 alums worldwide, and we're consistently ranked in the top 20 of schools of education by the U.S. News and World Report, reflecting our commitment to excellence in education. As you'll see today, and this is actually our building, the education building, which is newly renovated. We're very excited that starting in January this year, we will be back into our new building. Our counseling programs are housed at our historic education building, which is located in North Charles Street in Baltimore, right in what we call the center of the Homewood campus, which is the sprawling campus for Johns Hopkins University, which is in downtown Baltimore. We offer 2 specialty areas that you're going to hear more about tonight: school counseling and clinical mental health. Both programs provide comprehensive preparation for professional practice in their respective fields. Our mission for counseling really centers on preparing socially just counselors who implement theoretical, empirical, practical frameworks. And the foundation of our counseling program rests on these 3 pillars, while our values emphasize social justice and equity in counseling practice. So we're really committed to preparing graduates to facilitate client growth, their own personal development, introspective awareness, and global well-being. Our impact extends to serving communities worldwide, creating skilled professionals that are ready for practice. Why choose JHU? Many options out there, but I have 6 compelling reasons that distinguish our program in particular. First, we maintain CACREP accreditation. That's the gold standard that ensures quality education and eligibility for licensure nationwide. Our 12-to-1 student ratio means small classes with personalized attention, mentorship, and strong faculty relationships are at the forefront of what we do. We boast 100% placement success for our internships. So every student secures a quality clinical training sites or schools through extensive partner networks. And our prime location in the Baltimore, D.C. corridor offers abundant internships, jobs, networking opportunities. So with over 2,400 counseling graduates, our strong alumni network provides mentorship, job leads, career support. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, as a research university, you'll have access to cutting-edge research, resources, opportunities beyond your typical kind of counseling preparation program. Our student learning experience. Features 4 key components. We could go back one, Eliel. We have small class sizes of 15 to 20 students that ensures personal attention, meaningful relationships with faculty, and our one of the key features is our individual mentorship. Hands-on training begins from your first semester as you practice your counseling skills with real clients in supervised settings, accumulating at the end of the program 700 clinical hours, 100 through your practicum and 600 through your internship. Another key feature is we offer evening and weekend classes with flexible scheduling designed for working professionals who need to attend part-time, who are still committed to working during the day. So we do have a part-time track available. And finally, our modern learning technology includes hybrid learning platform with virtual reality training, telehealth preparation, and providing those future-ready skills that you're hearing about today with the fast-paced kind of transition to telehealth, AI. So those are all very current and relevant in today's counseling education preparation. And probably two major program features that deserve really special attention. We had mentioned this earlier. CACREP-Accreditation provides recognitions that Johns Hopkins counseling master's programs have been evaluated and meet and exceed professional national standards. This gives you confidence that graduates have met prerequisites for their credentialing and they're ready for entry into what we call professional practice. For international students, both clinical mental health and school counseling, I also want to mention that we are STEM OPT eligible. This allows international graduate students who complete our program successfully to remain in the US for up to 24 months after graduation to receive practical training through work experience in the counseling field. And this kind of behemoth of a slide here is kind of our program, full-time program structure. So you can see that they can be completed in 3 years. Both clinical mental health and school counseling tracks share core foundational courses in human development, counseling theory, techniques, and diversity. The programs diverge, however, in specialty courses. So you'll see in clinical mental health, students take courses in psychopathology, couple and family therapy, and addiction, while our school counseling students focus on foundations of school counseling, counseling adolescents, and school counseling leadership. Both tracks conclude with comprehensive practicum and internship experiences and research courses. If we move on to our next slide, we'll talk about the part-time structure. As I mentioned, we do have a flexible part-time option, and that extends the same 60 credit across 4 years instead of 3, making it ideal for someone who's still working. The structure maintains the same high quality coursework, but spreads it across additional semesters. This flexibility allows students to continue again current employment while pursuing their counseling degree. The curriculum covers the same core areas, same specialty focus, concluding in the same comprehensive internship requirements. And some electives. So students, even though you have a 60 credit 20 course program, can customize their learning through various electives. And here's just an example of some of them that are offered within our counseling program. So crisis intervention and assessment, entrepreneurship, really kind of exciting new areas, play therapy, advanced treatment approaches, behavioral medicine, health psychology, meditation, and mindfulness, just to name a few. And these electives allow students to develop specialized expertise in areas that align with their career interests and their long-term professional goals. Okay, if we move on to our clinical experiences and practicum, the practicum is a critical 3-credit class for students to accrue that first 100 hours in field experience settings, either in schools or clinical mental health agencies. Students provide 40 hours of direct hours, I should say, of individual and group counseling to clients, and complete 60 indirect hours on site and in supervision courses. This experience focuses on the integration of the theory and practice, case conceptualization, treatment planning, delivery of services, and supervision is provided by both our faculty in the counseling program and on-site clinical supervisors. And successful completion is required before advancing to the internship, which is the culminating kind of experience that you will have in the program. We're going to diverge for just a second. I'm going to talk about the clinical experience first for those of you that are interested in school counseling. School counseling students complete 600 hours total, 6 credits, practicing the role of a school counselor in a K through 12 public school setting. These can be completed in 1 semester or split between 2 semesters at 300 hours or 3 credits. So you can either do it all in one or split it across 2 semesters. It's important to note that field experiences require participation during the school day in school settings. So students need to plan their employment or part-time employment accordingly. Really, as you get to the end to both internships, we ask you to really consider what your situation is, because it's going to, similar to a student teaching experience, counseling internships becomes the intensive at the end of your program. Okay, and if we go to the next, the clinical experience for clinical mental health, students complete 600 hours or 6 credits of clinical practice in clinical mental health settings. This internship is completed also across 2 academic semesters, fall to spring sequence at an approved mental health agency. This extended experience allows students to develop sustained therapeutic relationships and gain comprehensive experience in clinical practice. The big difference between schools and clinical mental health is clinical mental health, you are encouraged and you work with our clinical site supervisor to find an appropriate placement. And we have over 150 partners across that Baltimore, Washington, D.C. corridor. In the school's experience, you are work with your advisor to find a direct experience so you're placed in a K through 12 public school. Moving on to the next slide. Certification and licensure. Upon graduation, students are eligible to take the National Counselor Exam, NCE, to obtain your National Counselor Certification, also known as the NCC. And after completing your certification, specialty certifications are available, including school counselor, clinical mental health counselor, and school counseling graduates are eligible for certification as school counselors in Maryland. For requirements in other states, students interested in perhaps practicing should visit the American School Counselor Association website to get an inventory of all the steps you need to do after you are prepared in Maryland. Okay, our graduates find employment across diverse settings. Clinical mental health counseling graduates work in private practice, general, psychiatric facilities, pain clinics, outpatient clinics, schools, government agencies, and community agencies. And our school counseling graduates are primarily employed in elementary, middle, and high school. But we also have college career centers, private organizations connected to school districts, private schools, charter schools, NGOs and community organizations where we find our school counselors have also found physicians. And as part of our leading research university status, our students have exceptional opportunities for research involvement and doctoral study preparation. These experiences enhance professional development, open pathways to advanced practice and leadership roles in the counseling field. Okay, one of our most active student organizations is Chi Sigma Iota, the International Counseling Honor Society, which provides networking opportunities, professional development, and recognition for academic excellence. This organization connects students with peers, professionals across the counseling field. I would say probably Eliel is going to feature some of our events coming down the line for fall. This is the first of our kickoff series. You'll see some of the representatives from that student organization. So I come in for Chi Sigma Iota to speak to you as part of our student panel, and they're a tremendously dedicated group and provide a lot of support, peer support to students and incoming students, and are overall a great asset to the school. So please stay tuned and join us again when we have our student panel, and you'll have a chance to meet some of those folks. And as we advance to our next slide, I think I'm going to turn it back to Eliel, and he's going to take us through some of the admissions applications requirements. Eliel?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. So yeah, I've been answering some questions as Liz was presenting there. And I know a few others came in, which I'm going to hopefully address here in the next few slides. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the application requirements when it comes time to apply for the MS in Counseling program here at the School of Ed. So we do take applications online. So you can find that directly through our website. I do want to share that there is an $80 application fee. So that is expected as part of the application process. And then within the application, we will ask you to upload a resume. Please take your time with the resume, right? So this is definitely a time where you want to demonstrate to the admissions and faculty committee all of your experiences, whether it's employment, relevant employment, right? Education, internship, volunteer work. This is a piece where you really want to make sure that you shine. And then additionally, we do ask you to write an essay. So if you go onto the online application or directly on our website, you will see the 2 questions that we will ask you to address. And I'm paraphrasing here, so you're going to have to double check on the application, is essentially why do you want to pursue a career in clinical or school counseling, right? And why specifically Hopkins? And then the second question will ask you to respond about a challenging or being challenged in a professional setting by a supervisor or a colleague. You do have parameters to answer those two questions. So I always stress to candidates who are looking to apply is to make sure that you follow instructions. So if we say specifically keep it within a 3-page limit, we expect candidates to keep it within a 3-page limit. So that's the essay, the personal statement. We also require 2 letters of recommendation. So for this piece, you want to start thinking about individuals who you feel confident, right, that can speak well and highly of you. Um, we don't really have a preference, right, in terms of academic versus professional. I typically will leave that to the candidate's judgment. But I will say, right, that if it's been 5, 10 years since you've graduated from your undergraduate or maybe even a graduate degree program, right, you may kind of want to assess your judgment on whether or not a faculty member is going to have the ability to write you a strong letter of recommendation. The other one would be a professional setting, right? So I always tell candidates who are looking at our program, think about relevant professional experiences related to either clinical or school counseling. And then apart from that, we will request official transcripts from every college, university that you have attended. This is both for an undergraduate program, which is the qualifying degree, or even a master's, PhD, or doctorate if you have that under your belt. You can send that directly through Parchment, and on the online application, it will give you step-by-step instructions on how to send those and what email to use. If your institution only does paper mail, you can do that as well. And again, on the online application, you will have a physical address on where to send those. We do not require a GRE for this program. So that is not something that you're going to have to worry or send to us. So moving on from there, I know like Liz mentioned before, right, this program is STEM designated. So we also do have a very strong international population, both in the School of Education, but also specifically in the counseling program. So we always want to share some of the international student requirements, right? So you will have to submit proof of English language proficiency. If you have studied right outside of the United States or you're not a US citizen. So newly, we've now have started accepting Duolingo, but historically we have seen IELTS, TOEFL as exams that students will submit in order to prove English proficiency. You do have the opportunity to request a waiver. There are some guidelines on what we accept in terms of waiving the English proficiency requirement. You can take a look at those on our website. But generally, the guidelines that we will say is if you're an international student and studied in the US or Canada or received only English specific instruction within your degree, right, then you can request that waiver. Additionally, apart from that, if you have completed a degree outside of the United States or Canada, we do request a course-by-course evaluation from one of the approved credential agencies. WES, right, is a popular one, ECE, Spantran, which I know they changed their name. I can't recall their new name. But again, if you look on our website, which we have the link there are 4 that we take a course-by-course evaluation from. I will also say, just talking from experience, you want to get started early on that course by course requirement. Because depending on the volume that that agency receives, they can take, anything from 2 to 4 months to get that completed and sent over to Hopkins. So if you are seriously considering, the counseling program here at the School of Ed, I would encourage you to start that within the next couple of weeks. So that way you have kind of a peace of mind and you're not stressing about the deadline, which I'll talk about here in a bit. So moving on from there, the deadline or the timeline, I should say, um, is January 28th. So that is going to be the final day that we will take a complete application. That includes your transcripts, your essays, your letters of recommendation, right? Everything needs to be submitted by the 28th of January for 2026 if you're looking to start for the fall of 2026. For everyone here today, I would imagine and I would hope that you do not procrastinate and wait until December, even November to start your application. I would encourage you to start it as soon as possible. That way, you're kind of situated in the best possible way for the next kind of steps, whether it's financial aid or the interview piece when it comes to the admissions timeline. Other than that, on April 1st, we also do have the deadline for the SOE Endowed Scholarship application, and then FAFSA, if you're eligible to complete and send that form. We would encourage you all to complete it by April 1st, and classes typically begin middle to the end of August. I know one of the questions that came up as Liz was going through some of the other slides was, do we take students during the spring? We do not take students in the spring. We only start in the fall semester. So at this point, the next term will be for the fall of 2026. So when it comes to financial aid and scholarships, on the slide, right, you're going to see some of our scholarship opportunities within the School of Education that you want to start looking at. We do have a counseling merit scholarship that's multi-year funded for 3 years. I would also encourage you to start looking for external scholarships, whether it's scholarship.com or teacher.org. And then also we have endowed scholarships, and this is just a limited partial based funding that we can give to students. For the most part, I will say that one of the biggest questions that I get when it comes to the counseling program is, how much, right? And can I be fully funded? So for a master's program that is applied based at 60 credits, like counseling, I will say that it's mostly going to be partial based funding. So you do want to prepare ahead of time, looking at different sets of funding, right, on covering the cost, which I'll talk here in a bit. But we do have endowed scholarships, right? And then also counseling merit scholarships that you're going to want to start looking at and applying for directly. The one piece I don't think we have here, unless it's later down, is international scholarships. So for students who are international students, we do have a global, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong here, 10 and 10 scholarship. Yeah, that you are going to want to look at as well. Again, that one has a deadline, and I would encourage you to go on our website and take note of that deadline and get started on that earlier rather than later. So cost wise,
If I could just
yeah,
add
go
for
ahead.
10 and 10, one unique feature I think and a question that comes up very frequently particularly for international students is the counseling merit scholarship is for domestic and international, and that's the primary scholarship for students. Tan Chen would be a supplemental, again, partial scholarship. So we also, in addition to the merit-based scholarship and various financial aid options, for our domestic population, we also have grants, federal work study, if you're a full-time student to help you fund your education. So I'm going to turn it back to Eliel because we'll talk about what we call expected tuition and fees. So tuition is subject to change for ensuing academic years, typically goes up anywhere from 5 to 6%. but this would be the expected rate for next year. Eliel, do you want to go ahead?
Mhm. Yeah. So on this slide, you're going to see here the cost per credit. And currently for 26 to 27, it's 1,400 per credit. And just as a reminder, this is a 60 credit program. So cost, for one course is approximately, $4,200. On top of that, students or candidates, I should say, should expect an 175 additional registration fee every semester. So when it comes time to register for classes per semester, there is that $175 registration fee. And then also, like I mentioned before, there is the $80 application fee. Now, we're not going to go into detail for today's webinar, but later down the road, we will have I believe like a funding your graduate level program webinar, which will talk deeper about what to expect. But very briefly, I will say, right, what you see here on this slide is tuition and fee based, right? So if you are relocating from across the country or from across the globe, right, you want to start thinking about other expenses such as your living expenses, books, right, non-billable items, right, just items that you're going to expect or bills that you're going to expect that are not going to come directly from the School of Education. So moving on from there, we do have some exciting webinars coming up here later in the fall that we want to invite everyone here today to attend because I think in order to make yourself as competitive as possible, you want to take advantage of all the resources that we provide, whether it's connecting directly with myself or Liz. But as you can see here for counseling, right, in October, we're going to have an opportunity for everyone here to meet and hear from a student perspective. So that will be October 1st at 7 p.m. And then later in November, we are going to bring in a set of faculty members within the counseling program who will talk a little bit about themselves, but also be there to answer some of the more deeper level questions that you may have. And hopefully by November, right, since you are here today, that you have your application complete. And now at this point of the admissions application process, right, you're really trying to kind of define specific questions within programs to set them apart. So that will happen in November. And then just as a heads up, myself and our associate director, Serena Stewart, who's not here today, but we are going to be hosting a few graduate application webinars or workshops. The first one being September 17th, which will talk a little bit more in depth on how to prepare and how to make yourself competitive when it comes to your essay, personal statement, and recommendations. And then the following day, we're going to go into talking about resumes, right? Transcript troubleshooting, submission tips, right? When you should submit. So if you're available, I would encourage everyone to attend these sessions. And I guess from here, we'll go ahead and transition to a Q&A. And as we kind of get ready for that, I did prepare some links that I want to put in the chat box. And before people or folks start logging off, I want to make sure everyone has access both to the list of webinars that we will have, those that I just shared, right? So if you want to go ahead and register, there's that webinar link that shows all of our webinars for this fall. And then if you do want to make an appointment with me or myself, one-on-one, I'm more than happy to chat with folks further, and you'll see my schedule there as well. But we'll go ahead and transition here. So we'll just start off from the top. Yeah. So in terms of are we going to share this recording? So for those of you who joined late, we are going to share the recording of today's session. So as long as you registered, you're going to be receiving that. I would expect by the end of this week. So one of the questions is very specific about licensing, right? So does the clinical counseling program, will I be able to obtain my LPC or my license for professional counseling? So the program does follow what the state of Maryland requires to apply for an LPC. So we will provide that guidance, right? And we do see, I would say, majority, if not all of our students, apply for what they call a graduate level LPC. And then for at least in the state of Maryland, once you hit 3,000 hours of supervisional work, you can then go and apply for your full LPC license. If you are looking at other states outside of the state of Maryland, first and foremost, I would encourage you to do your research within each states in terms of what they require. But if you do go on to our website, there is a legal disclosure that does talk a little bit further about some states that follow, right, of what our program follows, and just gives you some additional guidance. The other piece that I do typically share when it comes to licensing is for students to start looking at the Counselor's Compact. So the Counselor's Compact, right, would allow participating states, which I know the state of Maryland is a part of, along with, I believe, 38 other states, right? So if you are an LPC, right, you can go ahead and apply for this counseling compact, and it would allow you to provide telehealth to the other participating states. So, if you Google quickly, Counselors Compact, it'll come up. They have a great FAQ that I encourage every student that I talk with to look through, because I think that is going to be a really big piece for anyone coming into this profession within the next 5 to 10 years.
I think it's a great development for counseling in general to have that kind of passport to go to other states. But Eliel, I think you did a great job in terms of talking about the licensure path. But just to recap what we said, the path to becoming an LCPC in Maryland really involves two stages. The temporary supervised license that you obtain immediately after graduation, and then the licensed clinical professional counselor, the full independent practice license that you get. And that is a phase. So as Eliel mentioned, you have to earn the 3 years and 3,000 hours of supervised clinical experience to get to the phase two. You have to pass the NCE, the National Counselor Examination, and Maryland Law Assessment. And you have that step to kind of guide you, and then the compact states to look at closely as that expands is a huge benefit and a huge open door for you to practice in other states. So turning it back to you, Eliel.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I see here that I do get a lot in my either emails or one-on-one appointments is, do we offer courses during the summer? So that is a really great question, and Liz, feel free to add after I'm done here. So what I typically tell candidates who are looking at our program is, first and foremost, expect 3 years full time, or 4 to 5 years if you're coming part-time. As an admissions representative, I want to make sure that your expectations are there in terms of how long this program is going to take to be completed. It is a 60 credit program. So intentionally, right, we give the summers off to students. I will say that either students will take a break, some students will do research, right, along with faculty if that's something they're looking to pursue. And occasionally we do have courses during the summer where students may be able to pick a few courses up to either lighten their load for the coming semesters. As we transition to the new, or not the new, the renovated, I should say, School of Education building, right? Like that may change in terms of how many summer courses we offer. But as of right now, I will say, yeah, you might have some opportunity, but expect 3 years for a full-time program. I don't know if there's anything else, Liz, you want to add.
Yeah, I just want to add, it sounds like a long time, but this is a particularly intense program. You're doing 20 courses, 60 credits. You're doing a lot of field experiences, a lot of hands-on training, really to prepare you well and to prepare you according to those CACREP standards. That's pretty fast-paced. So I think when you're looking at programs, please keep in, look at the, kind of success rates of their students, but also you're going to have to pace yourself because it's an intensive program. It definitely is going to require a lot of focus, especially full time. You're kind of going through that. So passing it back over to you, Eliel. Let's see what we have for more questions.
Yeah, so I lost it now. All right, here's a good one that I think everyone will benefit from. So, are evening weekend classes offered? for part-time or full-time students. So in terms of the structure, right, our courses are only Monday through Friday in person. Now we do offer courses kind of scattered throughout the day. So you could have a course early in the morning, in the afternoon, and late evening, starting around 6 or 7 p.m. So that does allow for someone who's coming to this program part-time to work around the schedule, right? Um, Talking with students, right? In our program, I do know of students who have been able to secure a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday schedule. Other students are scheduled for every day of the week, right? Some students have been able to schedule only 2 days, right? So there is some flexibility in that piece. But we only do it during the weekdays. What I would also encourage you, right, if this is a really big piece of looking at the program and committing to the program, is to look at our public course search. And I can send this to you after we're done here. If you send us an email, I'm more than happy to send you the direct link. And then I can also send you the course by course layout that we have on this PowerPoint. And you can kind of go there and kind of just experiment and see when courses are being offered this semester to give you an idea of what you might expect for the fall of 26. Liz, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add
No,
there.
I mean, I think it's important to stress that this is an in-person program. You will see the occasional online or hybrid course thrown in over the summertime. When you get to the later phases of your program and practicum and internship, those require less what I call structured seat time. But the program's clinical components have to be in person. That's pretty much a must. And certainly our professors and faculty include modern learning technology in courses to supplement that. So some of our online courses may have synchronous components that might meet on weeknights or chat groups, and they're usually optional. But we have the point being we have some varied formats, but it is, because of the clinical requirements, expect to be there in person.
So another question that I have here is specifically, about the deadline of January 28th. Is there a priority deadline? So our only deadline is January 28th. But as I mentioned, as I was kind of going through the presentation, right, as soon as you feel confident about your application, about your essay, I would encourage you to submit it as soon as you can, right? I wouldn't wait until January, 2 weeks before the deadline, because sometimes hiccups may happen. Transcripts, right, can take a while to arrive. Letters of recommendation, which are out of your control, right? You're gonna be expecting for someone to take some time and write those and submit them to us. So I would encourage you to submit it as soon as you feel confident, about your application. But the 28th is the only deadline that we do have. So Liz, this is a good one. You might have more insight on this specifically. Do we offer a yellow ribbon program for veterans?
We have a full office, a centralized office for veteran affairs, and yellow ribbon is acknowledged as part of that. And I can put that in the chat for you, um, so you can investigate the options that you have for VA yellow ribbon program information.
Mhm. Um, Okay, here's another one that comes up pretty frequently is, do we offer graduate assistantships, right, in the School of Ed and counseling? So the short answer is no. We do have TAs, or teaching assistantships, but those typically only happen after a year that you're in the program. A faculty member does have to request a TA position, and then there are some other pieces that will have to come into play for you to secure a TA position within the counseling program. Now, with that being said, right, you do have access to the entire Hopkins University. So I've known a few students within the counseling programs who have been able to secure GAs or research assistantships outside of the School of Ed, right? So those opportunities may be there, but at least within the School of Education and within the counseling program, we do not. The only piece that we're going to offer is going to be a TA or a teaching assistantship. Sorry, it might take me a while to get some questions here. So in the employment section of the application, should we put our entire employment history or only our current job? Liz, do you want to answer
Sure.
this one? I'm trying to answer this one wrong.
It's one of those things you know, but you have to think about. I would advise you, I think there's up to typically the normal pattern is 10, 10 years of history. And there's three different slots in the application where it's asked to just kind of list your employer, your position, how many years you were there, when you started, when you left. It's pretty standard. And that I think would pretty much cover it. If you don't have 10 years, don't worry about it. You only fill out one. Let's say you have 3 years of experience, but it's pretty, once you get in the application, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about in terms of that. But you don't need to go much past that. If you have a lot of experience, no more than 10.
Thanks, Liz. So
Mhm.
one other question is about the practicum. And I can talk a little bit about this, right? Is so for the practicum, the clinical internship, right? It is 600 hours and then 100 hours potentially from the practicum, 600 from the internship experience. And you can carry those hours over towards the 3,000 hours that the state of Maryland requires. So that is a possibility in terms of working towards your full license, your full LPC. That is a possibility. Um, Okay, so I've seen a few here about just acceptance rate, right, and kind of the cohort size. So, this is always a tough question to ask. I will say that we are competitive. Um, Academics, GPA can be a big piece, but as we kind of talked about the application, there's an essay, there's a resume, there's 2 letters of recommendation. So there are other parts of the application that will also carry some weight. Generally, if I get asked, right, what is your acceptance rate? I will say, ballpark around 30 to 35%. Cohort size can depend from year to year, depending on the competitiveness. So it can range as a small cohort as 90 students to as large as 130 students that we had this past or this fall of 2025. So I would encourage you, right, not, I think when I talk with students, sometimes they think of Hopkins and they think of being super competitive, right? I would encourage you still to explore and still to apply because there are pieces apart from just academics, just from grades that our admissions and faculty will look for. And that comes into your essay, your recommendations. Um, if you schedule a one-on-one appointment with me, one of the things that I will always say is I encourage you, and I know Liz had it here at the beginning of the PowerPoint, is to look at our admission statement, right? We want to find candidates who align with our program. So as you look at that mission statement, and if you look at our learning objectives, right, really reflect and think about how you as a person, as someone who's interested in clinical or school counseling, align with that mission statement. And I can send that out to folks and as part of the follow-up emails, just so you have it.
And I think one of the things that's very unique, if I can add, Eliel, to your very kind of good points there, is one thing that's kind of unique about our counseling programs is our faculty and are not just looking for strict minimums in the GPA. Did you do really well in terms of your academic book learning? They're also looking at your disposition to become a counselor. And I strongly encourage everyone who's interested in applying to any counseling program, the CACREP standards that we talked about in the presentation, go out and look at the dispositions that are required for practicing counselors. That's a big part of that. Also, our faculty and our faculty review committees do intensive reads of applications. And so they take a holistic approach. We don't have cutoff scores. We don't have hard and fast rules about your academic experience. You really want to look, if you want to be competitive in this space, really think very deeply about your personal statement, your letters of rec. Think about the reasons that are motivating you to go into the profession. Those are all really, really important. So things you want to think about as you are applying. That what's gonna what is your true motivations for going into this profession?
Yeah, and then one of the other pieces kind of in the same conversation that I forgot to mention in one of my slides is right, the degree requirement. So I know I briefly mentioned that the required degree is a bachelor's degree. Um, and a common theme that I get from candidates who are looking at our program is, do I need a degree in psychology or the social sciences? So we do not specify in terms of what your degree is in. It does have to be accredited, right? So we do get applicants and we do get students that come into the program who are making career changes. So someone in the Q&A asked specifically about a degree in chemistry, right? I've seen students who were, in law, for several years, who were coming from business backgrounds. I've known students who have been former park rangers, right, and have found a calling in working with people one-on-one through clinical counseling. So that is a possibility. We do not require a degree in psychology or sociology. It just has to be a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution.
It certainly helps to have background. As Eliel said, it's not required, but I will give this group a tip. Um, there is a big difference between clinical mental health counseling and clinical psychology, and um, you want to be very prepared to know that difference. So, clinical psychology is going to require a doctoral degree. Um, Clinical mental health usually requires a master's degree. It is shorter, and the scope of practice. So, I mean, both are similar in some respects, but clinical psychology heavily emphasizes research methodology, statistics. This is not this program. So if you are interested in clinical, I'd encourage you to do more research, to see if counseling is right for you. Both require state licensure, but the requirements and titles vary, and clinical psychologists become licensed psychologists while mental health counselors become licensed LPCs. So really, I know they seem similar in title, but really have that in mind if you're looking at different professional pathways.
So one of the other questions we've been getting is specifically about application fee waivers. So as I mentioned to everyone before, there is an $80 application fee that you are expected to pay. We do give fee waivers, but you have to satisfy specific requirements. Liz, do you remember? Because I always forget the four requirements that we request. I can always send it to folks after, but I don't know if you knew it on the top of your head.
I need a little more context. I'm sorry, I was listening, but I wasn't
Yeah. So just
for.
application fee waivers.
Okay.
What are the
Yep, sure.
requirements? Yeah.
The requirements for waivers is we have a series. If you were in the Peace Corps, and this is all listed in our FAQs on the website, so I'd really encourage you to go and look at those. If you're a McNair Scholar, if you've come from the National Name Exchange, or I believe it's extended if you were in Teach for America, and you're an alumnus of that program, you can apply to have a fee waiver. On a very, very limited basis, we do offer what we would call hardship waivers, but you do have to apply for that, and there's very few given out a year, and it requires kind of giving extensive reasons why you were unable to pay the fee, but also ask you how you plan to fund your degree. So the fee, has some some ways to waive that, but it's definitely required. I would say probably about 85% of the people that don't qualify from one of those affiliate organizations do end up paying the fee.
Thanks, Liz. So let me look through here. Okay. So one of the questions I'm seeing here is specifically about experiences right outside of the candidate's education. Um, so that's a really good question. What I would say to that is you want to start thinking about your own professional experience if you have professional experience. So for a program like this, right, it's obvious we're not requiring individuals to come with direct clinical experience because you cannot do that in the United States. But we do like to see, right, some experience with working with people. So if you work in some form of human services kind of field spectrum, right, that's what I would encourage. If you are an undergrad student, right, who is looking to transition from undergrad to graduate school without going into the workforce, I would say you want to start thinking about internship experiences because those are key. Volunteer experiences, and even to some extent, even though we're more of an applied-based program, research experiences. So you want to start kind of finding opportunities that demonstrate your an interest into clinical or school counseling by ways of finding positions where you're working right with people. So that's what I would say generally. Um, Anything else that you would add to that, Liz?
No, I mean, I think it's really important for your foundation, to have, if you have that opportunity. I don't know that it's, nobody's expecting a student to come into this program fully formed. But experience is great if you have it. It's not an absolute hard and fast prerequisite, but the people aspect, it absolutely is. Certainly if you were like me, I was an experimental psych major in undergrad. I worked in a lab. I worked with animals. I didn't work with people. I would need some experience knowing what that's like before going into a clinical mental health counseling setting. So, they're different, think about and do a lot of research into that field. And certainly ask our students, come back to our panel over the fall about those. Some of them have come in and sought out internship opportunities before they applied, and they were very worried about that. Ask them how meaningful that was in the program later. And I'm sure they will be happy to lend their experience.
So I know we're close to our end time here, so I will answer a few more questions, but I know folks, may have very specific questions about your own kind of case scenario. And as just as a reminder, and I'll put it in the chat box again, I'm more than happy to meet with folks one-on-one. So I'll include my appointment calendar there. Or if you prefer, that you just want to send us an email, right? Maybe you don't want to spend half an hour with me, which is fine. You can also just send us an email directly to soe-apply@jhu.edu. But yeah, we'll maybe answer one more here before we go. And I'm going to look real quick here in terms of anything that seems that is going to be good for the entire community at large. GPA. So that is something, right, that we didn't include in the slides. If you go onto our website, you will find that, we do put out a 3.0 GPA. That is, just there, I would say, as guidance, right? Historically, have we admitted students below 3.0? Sure. There's a lot of context, right, when it comes to your academic performance. So I always tell students, do not feel discouraged if you were not a 4.0 student in your undergrad or graduate school. As Liz shared before, our faculty and admissions committee, when we review applicants, right, we are looking kind of at a full context, full picture of an individual. That both comes from professional experience, from your references, from your essay, right? How do you align with our program? And then, yes, academic performance. So that 3.0 GPA is there just as a reference. I will say though that, if you do find yourself in a GPA below a 2.7, 2.6, 2.5, right? I would encourage you just to make an appointment with me and we can have a kind of a deeper conversation on how, what this might look for you, whether it's for this fall of 26 or later down the road. But that's what I'm going to say, right, to that question about your academic performance. So we're going to go ahead and close it out. I know we still had a lot of questions here in the Q&A. I'm going to do my best to reach out to folks individually. I'll take a look at these questions as I go through my workday here towards the end of the week, and you may get an email from me kind of addressing some of those questions that we didn't touch here tonight. But I do want to thank everyone for taking some time out of your evening to learn more about the MS in Counseling program here at Hopkins at the School of Ed, and we hope that you find this as a fitting program for your future. But that's all I'm going to say. And Liz, I'll let you close it off.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, joining us. And, we look forward to receiving your application. And please come back for our structured events, where we have a series of events where you hear from current students, you hear from our faculty, you hear from financial aid. It's part of our, what I call our four-port series. But we're certainly here for one-on-ones for your questions. And I can think of no better guide than our LEL. He is fully vested, and he's probably one of the most knowledgeable people. And if he doesn't know the answer, he'll get it for you. But we thank you for joining us this evening and hope you have a great rest of your evening and a great rest of the week. Enjoy your Labor Day holiday.